So think about exactly how you kicked off your morning today. Did you reach for a hot cup of coffee? I mean, for billions of us, that first sip isn't just a drink, right? It's basically a ritual just to feel alive. But here is the wild part. Whether it's your morning coffee, a quick cigarette on a break, or a highly illicit substance, every single one of these chemicals manipulates your natural state through the exact same biological transaction. In today's explainer, we're diving deep into the chemical illusion. We're going to look at how 12 very different drugs completely hijack your brain, and of course, the inevitable price they always demand in return. Okay, so before we get into the specific drugs, you need to know that every single manipulated state we're exploring today follows a fundamental three-part cycle. First up, step 1, the onset. This is the climb. It's that initial rush as the chemical hits your bloodstream and starts rewriting how your brain communicates. Then we hit step 2, the peak. This right here is the illusion. It's that fleeting moment of perfect focus or boundless energy or maybe total escape. But, the brain is absolutely obsessed with balance, which brings us to step 3, the calm down. This is the brain's toll. It's the biological payback for the chemical loan you just took out. So definitely keep this cycle in the back of your mind as we go through this. To make sense of all this, we've grouped these 12 substances into 4 main categories, based on the experiences they create: the everyday illusions, the overdrive trap, bending reality, and finally, the great disconnect. Let's get right into it. Starting off with section 1, the everyday illusions. We're talking caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol. So, these are our socially acceptable, mostly legal drugs. But hey, don't let their familiarity fool you for a second. They are brilliant, subtle manipulators of our daily reality. Let's actually start with caffeine. Meet adenosine. This is the chemical your brain naturally produces to tell your body, hey, we're exhausted, it's time to sleep. Now, we all love to think that morning cup gives us magical energy, but the truth is way more manipulative. When you drink coffee, the caffeine rushes to your brain and literally acts like a roadblock for that adenosine. It doesn't actually give you energy, it just brilliantly hides your exhaustion. You get this peak of clear focus, basically confidence in a cup. But as your body breaks that caffeine down, boom, all that blocked adenosine floods back in at once, causing that inevitable crash of fatigue and irritability. So yeah, caffeine doesn't wake you up, it literally just delays your tiredness until later. And that brings us to the trap of our next everyday illusion, nicotine. The perception here is that it gives you a clean, controlled calm as dopamine surges. You take a puff of a cigarette or a vape, and for a few minutes your stress just seems to melt away. But the harsh reality? Nicotine burns out incredibly fast. As that dopamine fades, it leaves behind tension and restlessness. So the next puff you take doesn't actually relax you at all. It literally just resets the withdrawal that your previous puff created. Nicotine is basically tricking your brain into thinking peace only exists between cravings. It's quite the trap. All right, let's move over to alcohol to understand how depressants work. Alcohol physically slows down your brain and your nervous system. Now, the onset is highly deceiving. It brings this rush of warmth, relaxation, and this feeling that socializing is just effortless. But here is the ultimate illusion of control. At its peak, alcohol is severely fading your judgment, yet your brain fiercely maintains the illusion that everything is totally fine. You feel super alive and confident, while your physical coordination is actually slipping away. And the come down, we all know it as the hangover. But biologically, it's a massive brain chemistry crash that leaves you foggy, anxious, and exhausted. It's a chemical that makes you feel alive while slowly dulling the very things that make you human. Moving right along to section 2, the overdrive trap. Here we are looking at cocaine, methamphetamine, and MDMA. We're shifting gears pretty hard now from everyday habits to incredibly powerful stimulants. These substances dump massive amounts of brain chemicals all at once, creating these unbelievable highs that are entirely built on borrowed time. To really grasp the overdrive trap, we have to talk about dopamine. This is the neurotransmitter responsible for making you feel pleasure, reward, and pure motivation. When someone takes cocaine, it enters the bloodstream and actually blocks the brain from reabsorbing dopamine. So suddenly, the brain is just drowning in pleasure signals. The onset is this instant rush of euphoria and electric energy. The user feels completely invincible. But because the brain is burning through its fuel so unnaturally fast, the peak is incredibly sharp and really short. Within minutes, the dopamine levels completely crash, slamming the user into intense anxiety and exhaustion. It rapidly rewires the brain to need another hit, literally just to feel normal again. Now, if cocaine is a fast burn, methamphetamine is a lightning bolt. It gives you an energy that feels absolutely infinite, until you realize it's actually stolen right from your future self.
Meth floods the brain with both dopamine and adrenaline, basically supercharging the entire system. People talk faster, sleep feels entirely optional, and basic motivation turns into pure obsession. But this infinite energy, it's just the brain burning through its entire dopamine supply in one single explosive go. The come down is this harsh, gray, brutal chemical hangover that can last for days. The energy was never created. It was just stolen.
Our third substance in this overdrive trap is MDMA, which you might know as ecstasy or Molly. It floods the brain with a trio of chemicals, but most notably serotonin and oxytocin. At its peak, the brain is running on maximum empathy. You feel this deep, infinite connection to literally everyone around you. It's powerful. But the absolutely crucial thing to remember is that this connection is purely chemical. MDMA burns through your brain's natural supply of serotonin so fast that the come down leaves a severe emotional emptiness. By the next day, your brain simply lacks the biological chemicals it needs to feel natural happiness. Let's transition into section 3, bending reality. This covers cannabis, LSD, and psilocybin. We are definitely slowing the tempo down here. We're looking at psychoactives and hallucinogens. Now, these don't pump you full of false energy. Instead, they completely distort time, your ego, and how your brain processes sensory input. The biological target for these drugs is the 5-HT2A serotonin receptors. This specific network literally shapes how you perceive reality itself. So when even a microscopic amount of a chemical like LSD hits this network, it doesn't just make you see things that aren't there. It fundamentally rewires your processing. The boundaries between your thoughts and physical sensations start to blur. Reality itself can feel like it's breathing. When we put these 3 reality-bending substances side by side, it's a pretty fascinating spectrum. With cannabis, the active chemical THC gives this sort of dreamy distortion. Senses sharpen and time seems to slow down at the peak before a foggy tiredness inevitably sets in during the come down. But with LSD and psilocybin, magic mushrooms, the peaks are on a completely different level. Time loses its meaning entirely, and the ego, that specific part of your brain that says, I am me, literally dissolves. And for the come down, it's not really a crash. Instead, reality slowly has to rebuild itself, piece by piece. The thing about these substances is that they are incredibly unpredictable. That's because they rely so heavily on your own personal mindset and your environment. Like the saying goes, they don't show you something new, they just pull back the curtain on what's already in your mind. They might dissolve your thoughts into something deeply beautiful and enlightening, or something chaotic and terrifying. They don't invent new things. But you have to be aware, unlocking the mind like this can leave a person deeply confused or just emotionally drained for a long time after the trip actually ends. Finally, we reach section 4, the great disconnect: ketamine, opioids, and benzodiazepines. We are lowering the tempo entirely for these numbing agents. Depressants and dissociatives offer what feels like the ultimate calm, but they demand a brutal, absolutely devastating repayment. Let's look at ketamine. It's a dissociative anesthetic. What it does is block a chemical messenger called glutamate, which is what usually helps your brain process sensory input and keep you aware. The result? It literally separates the body from the mind. Within minutes, the whole world feels distant and muffled. At the peak, your perception completely detaches. Users might feel like they're floating above their own body and what's known as the K-hole. It disconnects you from pain, yes, for sure, but it also completely disconnects you from meaning. Then we have the terrifying allure of the opioid trap. Opioids attach to receptors in the brain to block pain, and they flood the body with a calm that feels like sinking into the world's absolute softest blanket. But here is the immense, life-altering danger. Opioids rewire the brain's baseline survival system. They essentially teach your brain that the drug is just as biologically essential as the air you breathe. Because of this, the come down isn't just a mood crash. It is an agonizing physical withdrawal where every single nerve in your body screams for the drug, making life utterly unbearable without it. It's a tragic cycle, really. The warmth they give in the beginning is the exact same warmth they take away from everything else in life. What starts as a deep, heavy calm, a blanket of absolute safety, ultimately erodes everything. As tolerance builds up, users are forced to chase a feeling that just keeps getting shorter and weaker. Over time, opioids destroy organs, they erode relationships, and they strip away everything else in a person's life until literally only the craving remains. Our final substance proves a really dark truth. Silence can be addictive.
Benzodiazepines, or benzos, are sedatives that enhance a brain chemical called GABA, which slows down brain activity. They loosen your muscles, they quiet your racing thoughts, and they make the world stop feeling so painfully sharp. The calm is incredibly profound. But the danger here lies in the come down, in the intense tolerance. The brain quickly forgets how to function or how to just stay calm on its own. So without the drug, that silence shatters into severe anxiety, tremors, or even seizures. So what does this all mean? We've seen how coffee borrows your future energy, how nicotine simply cures its own withdrawal, how stimulants burn up your natural dopamine, and how numbing agents hijack your most basic survival instincts. Every single manipulated state is a transaction. Every high is just a chemical loan from your own brain, and it comes with a guaranteed biological toll. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to think about. When we reach for these substances, are we ever truly escaping our reality, or are we just delaying it?